Hey, everybody, it's Tommy Canale, and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show to find out how those in sports, music, and entertainment made their mark. Well, you asked for it, I brought him back. A Ramsey personality that aids people in reclaiming their lives, take responsibility for your thoughts and behaviors. A leading voice on emotional wellness, relationships, direction, and finding hope. A now national best-selling author and the host of the popular Dr. John Delony Show. Once again, Dr. John, welcome back to the show.
What's up, T-Money? How we doing?
We are doing well, my man. You are killing a couple books since we talked, and we're going to dive into those. I got some questions that I didn't get to the first time we talked. And listeners, if you've missed the fabulous interview I did with Dr. John, go to the show notes. I'm going to put a link there where you can listen to the first episode. But let's kick off here. How can one connect with themselves and with people we care about?
Oh, man. Let me start with ourselves. Let's find out. So emotions and feelings are great barometers. They're great signals. They're the lights on our dashboard. Lean into those not as directionals, like telling you what to do, but as signals to things that you care about or things that may be out of whack. So for instance, if you find yourself raged out at your elementary school kids' little league t-ball game, that's telling you something about you, not about the ref, but about you. If your wife leaves some shoes out by the door, or if your husband puts his dirty dish back in the sink and you think, I'm going to go set him on fire. That says something about you, right? So if you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off and you immediately let fly some words that would make your grandmother roll over in her grave, right? Like that's about you. So I like to, man, our bodies are real smart, and we have entire systems to shut down our bodies and let social media, whatever, tell us what we should be doing and feeling and thinking. I really want to push people back. What is your body trying to tell you right now? And that is how I find connection, man. Slowing down, taking my earbuds out and reconnecting with the ground, going on for walks, going to the gym and saying, okay, how do I feel? What are some things going on? When it comes to reconnecting with others, I always start with this, man. My natural inclination is to go home and turn on Netflix and let The Office reruns be all the connection I need. I know what's going to happen. Those are my friends. We laugh at the same jokes. For me, it's about knowing that I can't truly be well unless I have other people in the room with me. For others, they may surround themselves with the wrong people. So again, I want to go back to your body. What's your body telling you? And then what do you know to be true? And then, man, being intentional about creating a world where you've got other humans involved with it, preferably in the same room with you.
That segues right into where I'm going to go next, because I see this and hear this happening a lot more since we've had this whole pandemic and this shutdown. Is people have plans and then somebody canceled those plans, and now people are feeling let down again because they're trying to get back out in society and do things. But I think there's another side of it where people just aren't ready to get there or for whatever reason, or people don't want to leave home and they cancel plans.
Right. We have this magical, annoying tendency, all of us, I have it, everybody has it, to make everything in the world about us. And so here's what I want to do. I think coming out of the pandemic, right as we enter into World War III, right, as we come out from one thing to the other, let's stop making everybody else's decisions, everybody else's choices all about us. Right. So if I have a group of guys that I invite over to my house to hang out, I'm tiptoeing back into human connection. Right. And 3 of them pop up and say, hey, man, I can't make it for whatever reason. I don't feel comfortable. I got busy. My wife didn't want me to go. I'm going to let them take the ownership of that. I can be disappointed. Of course, man. I'm bummed out. I want to hang out with my friends, but I'm going to be intentional about not taking that personal. They made some choices because of things going on in their lives. They're grown-ups. They get to own that. And I'm going to hang out with the 1 or 2 guys that can show up. And if no one can show up, yeah, I'm going to be super bummed, but I'm not going to get hurt by it. You get the difference there? Mm-hmm. One is disappointment, bummed. One is I'm a loser. I'm going to dump a bucket of shame on myself, and I'm going to eat or drink or scroll my way through to numb it out, right? So I'm not going to take things like that personally. Everybody's struggling right now. I'm going to take what comes. I'm going to be grateful for what I got. And then I'm going to try again the next time.
Dr. John, how do we balance or challenge ourselves with profession versus family now that everybody's trying to get back to what the original norm was?
Man, I think what we're seeing right now is, for lack of better terms, we're seeing a migration event. And what I mean by that is, throughout history, there's been moments when we don't know what's out there, but we're going to get on a boat and sail across an ocean that may kill us, because what's out there, what might be out there, is for sure better than what we know is here. And what we're seeing across the country is people are quitting their jobs in mass. Often, like, I'm just going to start my own job. Anywhere is going to be better than where I am. That's how bad things have gotten. And so I think what we've seen, a blessing of, and I'm a big silver line, I try to find the optimistic moment of every situation. Something that's happened over COVID is, over the pandemic, is my identity can't be in my work anymore. Like, I can't try to achieve happiness or joy. I can't try to get the next fancy job title and think that's going to cure me, because overnight it can just all go away. And so I've got to have an identity rooted in things way deeper than that. And there's very little deeper than family. And so I think we're seeing a reorientation about what matters and what's important. And as people pack up and just say, I don't know, again, anywhere it might be better than what I know is here. I think this is the season, this is the moment to not go back to the old ways of trying to earn or achieve or put all your identity into what you can accomplish, and instead put your identity in love, relationships, and connection.
When you just said love, relationships, are you getting a lot of calls and questions on people trying to get themselves reoriented back into the dating scene? And are they feeling insecurities about getting back into it?
Man, I think the modern dating scene is a train wreck. Here's why. It's been co-opted by a business transaction, right? So we outsource. There's a recent study I just read the other day about how people are excited that AI is going to help filter potential people for them. But at the core, people create AI for business transactions. And so instead of meeting people, and I hesitate to say this because I'm going to sound like an 80-year-old man who had to walk uphill both ways to school in the snow, right? Without any clothes on. But in the old days, you met people because you met people. You liked them. It looked like, hey, this would be cool. I'll try this. Let's go out here. She's pretty. He's cute. He looks nice. He's kind of not really cool, but he's funny, right? Let's whatever. And now we're letting business interests direct us towards people that they think that we might be worthy of being in contact with, and vice versa. And I think that adding that other layer of somebody who does not have an altruistic vision, they actually want to make money off the transaction. I think that sets up modern dating to already, it's just a wreck. It's a mess. And so, yes, I'm getting tons of calls, interestingly, about dating, but I'm also getting tons of calls about, I feel completely alone in the same bed that I share with somebody I've been married to for 15 years.
Wow.
Because we found out over the last 24 months, oh, I didn't know you thought that about politics, or I didn't know you thought that about health, or what. Like, whoa, we are way far apart. I didn't know that when a crisis came upon us, that's how you would react. I didn't know you. I thought I did, but I didn't. And so most of the questions I'm getting these days are about sex and intimacy and reconnection and what does love look like. And what I hear beneath all of that is people who are desperately lonely, desperately wanting to belong and be part of something bigger than they were. Man, and COVID just took the air out of all of that. So yeah, it's everybody's having to baby step their way back into it.
We got so much going on in this world of ours today that we could spend an hour just listing all the craziness that's going on. But how do we step back or step out of this madness of the world and take care of ourselves?
Man, this is incredible. I hate hacks, but I'm going to give you a great life hack.
All right.
This is just special for the Before the Lights listeners and you, Tommy. And I didn't know this until recently. Every one of our devices comes with this incredible thing on the side of it. It's called the off switch. and you can just push it and the whole box just shuts off. It's amazing, Tommy.
I got to try that.
Yeah. I had no idea. I had just pretty much plugged it into my ear hole and let it just download into my brain. Here's the thing. There's all this stuff going on. And like after this past weekend, I don't know when the podcast will air, but this past weekend is, when Russia invaded Ukraine and there was all of these images of these dads kissing their daughters and their sons and putting them on trains or walking them all the way to the Polish border and then turn around and going back. And I couldn't help. I got a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old. I couldn't help but replay that over in my mind over and over and over. And even to the point my son came and sat down and I was honest with him. I said, hey, man, I got really weepy this weekend. Like the world just changed. And that was hard for me. And then I have to turn it off because this particular moment in my particular history, nobody's calling me to fight. Nobody's called me to leave my children and grab a gun and head into battle. And if I live in somebody else's war right now, I have a temptation to not be present in my home. I have a temptation to not do the small, little, consistent things that I'm responsible for as a member of a household, as an employee of a business, as a member of my country. And so I think it's important to know what's going on. It's important to be empathetic. It's important to let that touch your soul. And it's important to turn it off and join your real world, right? It's both and we either get caught up in it and we can't stop, or we just numb from it. And I think we've got to be intentional about a little bit of both and then going full bore into our lives.
When we wrapped up our first interview back in 2020, the book Redefining Anxiety, What It Is, What It Isn't, and How to Get Your Life Back was just about ready to come out. But now you have a new book due out April 19th, 272 pages called Own Your Past, Change Your Future. Folks, go to the show notes. I'm going to put links where you can get both these because if you pre-order on the website before April 19th, you can get bonus items that includes 1 month of free weekly therapy sessions with BetterHelp. So if you need something else to entice you to buy the book, just buy the damn book, will you? So you're going to get some extra stuff. But Dr. John, where did the title idea come from for you?
Oh, man. Honestly, if I was to distill down what our world has done to us, it's given us two options. Either you are the worst thing that ever happened to you. You are the worst choice you ever made. You're the stupidest thing you ever said. If you were assaulted, you're always going to be a survivor. If you had cancer, you're always going to just be a survivor, right? We've created this world where we are only the worst thing that ever happened to us. And that means somebody's got to come save us. The government's got to come save us. Some big entity has to come save us. We are going to be forever broken and damaged. The other narrative we've been given is if you have feelings, you're some kind of weak, wimp, coward. Only pathetic losers have feelings. Suck it up, grind it out, kill it, drag it, murder it, whatever, all the, whatever words. And here's the thing. Scientifically, neurologically, physiologically, spiritually, psychologically, all that is nonsense. So it's both and. There's a new third way, and that's this whole book, man. It's the new third way is you have to own what happened to you. You got to look in the mirror and say, I was assaulted. You got to look in the mirror and say, people do not treat me fairly because of the color of my skin, for God's sake. People hate me because fill in the blank. This happened, this happens, and there's a period at the end of that sentence. That is true. And then the magic moment comes when you do what the world is begging of all of us. Is you then say, so what comes next? So what now? Because I refuse to be defined by the worst thing that ever happened to me. What does healing look like? What does tomorrow look like? What does a world look like where we all rise up together and begin to heal and begin to grow and begin to make this mess something better for our kids and grandkids? And so the book, it's really on the nose. You got to own your past, and then you got to stand up and be about changing what comes next for you and changing your entire family tree.
What I really think is cool about this book is it's stories and stories that offer a problem, but then you also are going to offer a solution for people that may be dealing with that problem, where a lot of these books don't do that. So I tip my hat to you for putting that in there.
I appreciate it. we left, I think 40 or 50,000 words on the cutting room floor. There was, it usually, I think there was 3 or 4 sections, and they were like, hey man, we're not printing a dictionary series here. So, but yeah, there's the first half of the book, which is the stories we're born into. Like, what did your church tell you about God and whether he hates you or not? And what did your parents tell you? And what did your family systems tell you? And then the stories that we were told, those ones that the coach told us. That one coach said, you can do anything, or you you're not playing for me anymore, right? Those stories that just continue to loop and loop and loop. And over time, those become the stories we tell ourselves, right? So it used to be that one boyfriend told us, yeah, I don't wear that shirt, that makes you look fat, becomes me at 35 looking in the mirror saying, man, you look fat. You're too fat to be loved, right? You're not pretty enough. You're not attractive enough. You know what I mean? I'm not going to ask for that promotion. I'm kind of a loser. Those stories that just haunt us. And then, yeah, the back half of the book is, what do you do about all that?
The chapters end with questions and exercises that you can use to change your own life. A question I have for you, Dr. John, is I'm guessing here that these exercises that you put in the book are some of the very own that you use to change your own life.
I mean, there are ones that I got to go back to over and over again. That's the cool part, and the crappy part of this is the moment we think we have it all together, I go outside and get a call on my cell phone, and it's my dad telling me, hey, mom's got cancer, right? Or the moment I got it all worked out, it's all great, is the moment that, I get a call and it's some guy saying, hey, I've been dating your wife, right? Not in real life. Neither of those things are true. But, or I get a flat tire. The other day I was in a crazy wreck that I barely escaped, right? I mean, so life happens to us. And so even I, the guy who literally wrote the book, I've got to circle back and say, you know what? In the last 3 or 4 days, my cell phone time, me just staring at what's going on over in Russia, has increased 10x. And then I'm going to circle back and say, how much of my life am I giving to the phone versus my son, versus my daughter, versus my wife, versus my work, right? And so these things are not one and dones. These are questions you go back to that really frame and help create patterns of behavior over time that help me change my actions and ultimately help me change how I think about things.
How complex is the word relationships?
Oh, dude, I was just in a meeting. We are picking it apart. It's all over the place, man, because you have work relationships and romantic ones and friend relationships and parent-kid relationships. And we have done, as we've increasingly become more and more lonely as a society, as a community, we've begun filtering out people from our lives. And so relationships that used to be in firm buckets, right? I had, faith relationships. I have old school friend relationships. I've got those that are wisdom and mentors. I've got those who keep me safe. We've just dumped all of those relationships onto my wife. You complete me. You're everything else. You got to keep me safe. You got to be, we got to be attractive. You've got to be like my co-partner, my business partner, my home partner, a co-parent. It's too much for people to bear. And so then we take it off of our spouse and we dump it at work. My work has to be my purpose, my meaning, you're the meaning to my life. You're the inspiration, right? The old Chicago song. It's got to be everything. It's gonna be my paycheck, where I'm safe, where they meet all of my needs. And man, yeah, relationships as an entity is a mess, but especially because we've distilled it down into 2 or 3 very small buckets, and we've tried to fit all of our needs on those tiny little groups.
We talked before about social media. We're not going to get back into that. And although we are more connected than we've ever been before as a society to our cell phones and technology, we are no longer connected to each other as human beings, it seems like.
Yeah, 1000%, man. We've just outsourced relationships and we've outsourced connection to our digital boxes. Boxes are great, man. Don't get me wrong. They're great, but they are not for connection. They're for information transmission, right?
Yep.
I can communicate to my wife that I love her, but that's different than showing her. That's different than telling her. That's different than helping with the dishes and showing up with dinner and making sure the house is locked up after she falls asleep. Like, those are things that communicate, that show, that connect. Cell phone, I can send hilarious memes and I can let her know, hey, we need to be at the movie at this time. But those are connection and communication are 2 very different things.
Yoko Ono has a great quote that says, loneliness is equal to the radius of one's awareness.
Ooh, man. Yoko dropping some poetry there.
Yeah.
Can I say that again?
Loneliness is equal to the radius of one's awareness.
I'll have to think on that a minute, because my first thought is I have been incredibly lonely in a crowded room before. I've been incredibly lonely on a team of people. Like when I was, did sports, we all had a single-minded goal. We wanted to win, and we were all trusted each other. We loved each other. Yet because I was unwilling to plug in, because I was unwilling to completely go in with both feet, I remained lonely, right, in a crowded room. And so, I can be aware of it. I have to think on that one. I'll have to think on that one.
All right. In the book, 5 steps to being well. Own your stories, acknowledge reality, get connected, change your thoughts, and change your actions. The one I want to just ask about is acknowledging reality, because so many people don't do those 2 words put together.
Oh man. Yeah, that's hard. So let me say this. I'll preface this. Nothing, Tommy, in the world makes me more bonkers than like a 2 a.m. infomercial that's like 14 steps to the new plump booty, right? Or like, 7 steps to learn your language. Like that stuff's so reductive. It's nonsense. I hate it. These really are not 5 steps as much as and I present them as 5 steps in the book, but they're really 5 principles that are going to help you in life as things come up and come up and come up, which they will until we're all done, right? But yeah, acknowledge reality. So once you own your past, once you begin to see how some of these stories you've picked up along the way, whether it was 2 weeks ago or 25 years ago, once you figure out how those stories are continuing to replay in your current life, the hard part, man, is sitting down and looking in the mirror and acknowledging reality. I wanted a different marriage, and this is what it is. I wanted to make this team and start for them. I am I could blame coach, bro. I got screwed, but this is as good as I am. I'm a backup right now. I haven't put the time in, or maybe I've put the time in and I've just squeezed every ounce of talent and hard work out of my life that I can, out of my body and my mind and spirit. And I'm always going to be second team. And that's the role I'm going to play. And I'm going to be the best second teamer there, right? So you got to look in the mirror and own reality. You cannot move forward if you don't own reality. That coach said that thing. That old boyfriend of mine violated my boundaries. That coach inspired me beyond all words. My dad was not a supporter. He was an over supporter. Whatever it is, you got to acknowledge reality before you can move on.
Do parents need to learn to encourage and leave positive impressions more, or do you think we're okay with that?
I think our parents are I'm trying they're not doing great. They're not doing great, Tommy.
All right.
Doing great.
So we still need to work on that category for his parents around the world.
I mean, geez Louise. We have a generation of exhausted and again, I'm bagging on parents. I am one. So I'm talking to myself. We've got a generation of exhausted, fried, and cooked parents. They did exactly what they were told. They spent $1 jillion on college. They worked for 100 years for a job that was told it was going to make them happy. They bought a fancy car, then the fancier car, then they leased the other fancier car, and they bought the bigger house. And they are staring at the mirror, and they're not happy with what they look like, and they're not happy with who they've become, and they're bored. And whenever you talk to people who commit adultery, when they cheat on their spouse, the number one word that comes back is, I finally felt alive again. So we have a group of parents all across this country, myself included, that struggle with purpose. What am I even doing here? And then unfortunately, all of that gets dumped into this new world that we have where our kids complete us. That we look at T-ball performance and dance recitals and football performance as some sort of metric as to how good of a parent we're being. And if my kid's good, then I'm a good parent. If the ball goes through my kid's legs out in the center field, it's a reflection of me somehow. Dude, they're playing a game, right? Or if your kid does those dancing horses or what was it? Dressage or something. If your kid's horse doesn't dance right, that doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It only means you're a bad parent if you start screaming and yelling at a domesticated animal, right? So I think we've created a world for ourselves that's not sustainable. And we are super, super lonely. We're super burned out. We're super exhausted. And the one thing we got is our kids. And we have put the world on our kids. And then I hear things like, my daughter's my best friend, my son's my best friend. And Tommy, like, kids, they cannot carry that weight. They cannot carry the adult weight of an adult relationship, an adult friendship on their little shoulders. And we're just crushing our kids, man. And now you're talking about kids needing mental health days at school. Think about this. We've created a world, both at home and at school. We start school at 6 a.m. We keep them there till 6 p.m. We've created a world where the only way they can be well is to opt completely out of it for a day. That's not childhood. That's not raising healthy adults. That's adults who have created a world, and we've gone mad. And so, yeah, I poke at parents, man. We're doing a brutal job. But I also think there's a reason why we're not doing a great job, man. We've created a world that's just not sustainable for us, and our kids are paying the price.
There's been a ton of loss of life throughout this whole shutdown and pandemic, and a lot of grieving. Can you talk about the importance, though, of when you are grieving, that you need to exercise and eat well and sleep well for your own mental health?
Yeah. Again, I feel like this is like talk trash about society and culture day for Delony, but we've got a culture that has tried to solve for comfort, right? We've created leather seats and air conditioners, and I love all that stuff, by the way. It's fantastic. I love driving in my truck on the way to work. I mean, I love all that stuff. I love deer hunting with a rifle that I can, that's really nice and fancy and weighs right. I like comfort. But in the process of solving for comfort, we've begun to solve or pathologize or make bad anything that's uncomfortable. And so now we live these 72 to 72 to 72 degree lives. We go from an air-conditioned home to an air-conditioned car to air-conditioned office and back. And our bodies aren't designed to live like that. And then if you extrapolate that out to our emotional lives, we've said, if you ever feel sad or bad or uncomfortable, there's a pill for that. There's a drink for that. There's an app for that. And man, we are designed to grieve. It's built into us, right? It's a natural part of life that we love deeply and then we lose, right? There's loss. It's part of it. And so, yeah, going back to acknowledging reality, all grief is the gap between what I wanted to happen, what I hoped would happen, and what actually did happen. That's what grief is. So I wanted my granddad to live forever, and he passed away the other day. I wanted my mom to live and to see her great grandkids, and then she got COVID and she passed away. That's grief, and you got to sit in that. And now we got infrastructure where, all right, if it's an immediate family member, you get 3 days and you got to be back. And if it's an aunt or uncle or a grandparent, if you got sick leave, you can take that. Man, that is a recipe for psychological implosion. So we have to own it. And here's what I've seen. Man, Tommy, I've seen this a lot during the pandemic, is comparing grief. Like, I lost my job, which we know psychologically is equal to losing a loved one. That's how damaging losing a job is to our bodies, right? Our bodies know we're not safe. And our first words out of our mouth are, I lost my job, but at least everybody in my house is healthy. And then you're telling that to somebody and they go, yeah, my dad spent 10 days in ICU, but at least he didn't die. Not like Phil's dad, right? And then Phil's like, yeah, but my dad didn't suffer. Not like Tom's dad, right? And so we just keep passing the buck as though there's some zero. There's only a certain amount of hurt that can happen. And you don't want to take too much of your hurt. Man, if it hurts, it hurts. And if you lost your job, you got sick for 10 days, or you lost both parents, everybody has a right to their grief. And you got to sit in it, and you got to write about it, and you got to be sad about it. And the more you try to blow by it, the more it will hang on to you and hang on to you and hang on to you for years and years and years. The number of people, Tommy, that call my show and I get quiet and I listen to them and I say, hey, you got to let your dad who passed away 10 years ago, you got to let him go. And they just will weep. Or, hey, your husband who died 3 years ago, you got to let him go. You're still propping him. You're still trying to keep him alive, and he's gone. You got to let him go. His memory will always be there. The photos will always be there. Like who you are and the kids you made will always be there. But you got to let him go. And there's just this heft, this weight, this weeping that happens because your people just don't want to grieve. They just want to hold on. And so, yeah, we have to reclaim grief as just a part of our culture. It's who we are. It's not pleasant. It's not fun, but it's necessary. It's part of us, right?
Parallel to that, then, How do you learn to forgive?
Whew, man. I like the old AA quote. For not forgiving is like choosing not to forgive somebody is like poisoning yourself and hoping somebody else will die. Forgiveness at the end of the day is for you. It's for me. It's a choice. Like I like to think of forgiveness as a brick that like somebody violated your values and you're holding that and it's heavy, right? Sometimes, if somebody does something egregious to you and they hit you with that brick or they hurt you with that brick and you're holding it and it hurts. Every day I choose to carry that brick after that, it's not hurting them anymore. I'm choosing to intentionally burden myself with it. And so as much as I can to be intentional about, I'm setting this brick down. That doesn't mean you and I are going to be chums and best friends anymore. That doesn't mean I'm ever going to talk to you again. That means I am choosing intentionally to no longer let you affect my physiology, my body, my world. And sometimes, oftentimes, dude, forgiveness is hard. Forgiveness can be excruciating because you don't want to let people off the hook. It's when you realize, oh, it's not that I'm letting them off the hook. It's that I'm letting them continue to have hooks in me, that you realize the importance of forgiveness and walking free, right? Walking light through life.
There's been so much in the political world that has changed our country and divided our country with now fake news and negative news and TV that people just turn on and have something in the background that's almost like mindless eating, so to speak. How do we decipher and get people back to the groundedness that we were at before all this, I don't know, this crazy atom thing dropped from the sky and changed the world?
Man, I was just having a conversation today with a colleague, with Sam, and her and I were talking of all the things. Like I pride myself on not being surprised, right? And I pride myself on thinking, okay, I can see through that. The thing I can't wrap my head around is the last thing I want in a group of friends, in a spouse, in a community, in my children, the last thing on earth I want is a group of people that think exactly like I think, that believe exactly like I believe. I want to have similar values. I do. I want people who are curious, who treat each other with dignity and respect, who work their butts off, who love deeply. I want people to have the same values. But when it comes to beliefs and solving problems and thinking about things differently, I've spent my entire life making sure that I don't surround myself with a bunch of people who think like I do. What a lame way to live. What a boring way. And so when it comes to the media ecosystem, I don't understand it because it's opposite, right? When the election happened this year, I had 3 laptops up. One I borrowed, and then one was mine, one was my wife. And we had all 3 news stations up. And I wanted to, I was sat there with my son, who was 11 at the time. And we were just watching, hey, this person said this versus the way this person said it. And I was trying to teach him how this happens, but I just don't understand that. So to me, it all comes back to this. Love local. My friend Andy Gullahorn says that. He's a musician here. Here's what I cannot do anything about. Russia, nothing. Ukraine, nothing. The presidential, nothing. I can do nothing. And so what can I do? Gas prices. Can't do anything about it. So every second I spend complaining about gas prices, yelling about gas prices, is a second I'm choosing to be miserable because I can do nothing about it. I can't tweet about it. I can't write no Facebook posts that I angrily send. Nothing I can do can help that. But what I can do is make sure I don't owe anybody any money. So if gas prices go up, then I'm not putting my family's life at risk because I had to have some fancy Suburban that I couldn't afford that I've got $800 a month payments on. I can choose to pick up to keep a little bit of money that I can give. And so when I see somebody up at the gas pump and they're putting $5 in, I can walk over and put my card in and fill up their whole car. I'm going to feel better after that. I'm going to help my community. So we can solve some of these problems at the local level. And if all of us will be about solving problems at the local level, man, it has a ripple effect at the national level. And so get your hands dirty, turn the computers and the TVs off, and be about serving your communities. And I know that sounds like, oh, okay, way to go, Delony. It has a massive effect, an expansive effect, both inside of you and in your homes and in your communities.
I love that.
And serve.
It's the snowball effect. And there's the life hack again with that little switch that turns things off.
Yes. Yes.
Focusing on who you want to become versus goals you want to achieve.
Oh, man. I think James Clear was so eloquent about this in Atomic Habits. And man, it rang real true to me. That was the first time in about 10 or 15 years I sat up from a book and thought, all right, I buy this one. I'm going to change the way I look at this problem tomorrow. I've been someone who, ever since I was an athlete, I've still maintained a pretty rigorous exercise schedule. I love competing. I love being active. But I also beat myself up about it. I carry a lot of shame. You should have worked out. You should have worked out harder. I don't care if you're tired. What a loser. Get it up, suck it up. I talk to myself in ways that I would never tolerate somebody else talking to the woman at the register, right? Never. If I heard somebody talking to her, she's scanning groceries and they just started mouthing off to her the way I talk to myself, it'd be bad news for everybody, right? So what James Clear talks about, and I cite him in the book here, is this idea of, instead of saying, I have to work out 5 times a week, man, change the whole tone of that to an identity. I'm a guy who takes care of his body. I'm a guy who's a steward of the one precious little body I've got. I'm a guy who treats his wife right. And then all the behaviors you reverse engineer out of your identity, right? It makes it much easier. Like, I'm a guy that takes care of his body. I'm a good steward of my body. That's who I am. Working out then is not something I'm forced to do. It's who I am. It's a part of me, right? And you practice these new identities. You don't just clap your hands one day and be like, all right, I am now a guy who can fist fight, right? That's not how that works. That's a recipe for getting your nose broke. But I'm a guy who can take care of myself. That's a guy who's going to go look and sign up for a jiu-jitsu gym. That's a guy who's going to learn how a bow and arrow works. That's a guy who fill in the blank, right? Mm-hmm. So I love the idea moving forward. We are coming out of the last 25 or 30 years of a culture that's obsessed. Make your goals, crush your goals. What happened? We all got our goals. And then we all realized how hollow that was because we never changed. And the crappiest thing about succeeding in a goal is that you go with you. I don't care. Like, oh, cool. Make $100,000. Cool. You're the guy who's still kind of lame and you made $100,000. Golf clap to you, brother. Way to go. Right. Or I'm a guy who works really hard. I'm a guy who comes up with products and services that help meet needs in my local community and beyond. That guy's going to make a lot of money, right? Because you're solving problems. That's who you are. Money takes care of itself, right? And so I love that shift that Clear. I mean, he gave that. I love that he put that out into the world, man. And it's been a game changer for me.
The book is Own Your Past, Change Your Future. Dr. John talked about loving local. So I'm going to challenge you listeners to do something here. Buy the book before April 19th and buy a second book to give to somebody to help move this world forward. And also, when you buy that book before April 19th, you're going to give somebody else a free month of therapy sessions from BetterHelp, plus a couple other bonus items. So buy one for yourself, buy one to give to somebody else. And if everybody will do that, Dr. John not only is going to love that he's going to be a 4-time national best-selling author, but we're going to take this book and we're going to get it out to the masses so people can start taking control of their lives. Dr. John, thank you once again for being on Before the Lights, man. You're a rock star in my eyes.
Tommy, you're a saint, and I appreciate you putting positive messages out in the world, man. We need it. Thanks for taking care of our athletes and those folks who are trying to bring joy and entertainment to people, but man, who have a hard time when the door closes at home. And man, you're a gift to those folks, and I'm grateful for you, brother.
Thank you. Folks, if you would, follow me on Instagram at Before the Lights Podcast. And if you're not following the podcast, do so anywhere podcasts are found. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. And until next time, everybody, I salute a chin chin.